Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
At first, I thought my cousin just needed a little help, watching her kids for an hour here, and there didn't seem like a big deal. But then, she stopped asking. She would drop them off without warning, sometimes in the middle of my workday, sometimes late at night. It became a nightmare. One day, after yet another surprise babysitting ambush, I had enough. I installed a Ring doorbell and decided to start ignoring the door. I watched from my phone as she knocked, rang the bell, and even tried to call me. Then came the text. "Why aren't you answering?" She had no idea what was coming next. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. Jessica had always been the type to push limits. Growing up, she was the cousin who would borrow your favorite sweater and mysteriously forget to return it. The one who would invite herself to your place, raid your fridge, and leave behind a mess for you to clean up. But this was a whole new level. It started with a simple favor. One Saturday morning, Jessica called me, her voice dripping with exhaustion. "I just need a few hours," she pleaded. "I haven't had a moment to myself in weeks. Please, I'll owe you big time." Her two kids, Daniel and Ava, were both under 5, loud, energetic, and always in motion. Babysitting wasn't exactly my idea of a relaxing weekend, but she sounded genuinely desperate. I hesitated, but in the end, I said yes. And at first, it didn't seem like a big deal. She dropped them off with a quick "thank you, you're a lifesaver," and bolted out the door before I could even ask when she'd be back. I entertained the kids, fed them, played with them. By hour 3, I was already exhausted. But when I checked my phone, there were no updates from Jessica. No "be there soon" or "running late" texts. She finally showed up after 6 hours, her hair freshly done, holding an iced coffee like she had just spent the afternoon strolling through a mall. "Wow, time flies when you finally get a break," she said, laughing as she scooped up Ava. "They weren't too much trouble, right?" I forced a smile, even though I was annoyed. "Next time, maybe let me know how long you'll be gone." She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, totally. Sorry about that. I owe you." I should have said something stronger. Should have made it clear that I wasn't a free babysitter. But I didn't. And that was my first mistake. The next weekend, I was in the middle of cleaning when I heard a knock at my door. When I opened it, Jessica stood there, Daniel and Ava already halfway inside, kicking off their shoes. "Hey, I'm running late for something. Just need to drop them off real quick," she said, handing me Ava's bag before I could even respond. I blinked. "Wait, you don't mind, right?" she cut in, flashing a wide smile. "You're so good with them." And just like that, she was gone. The door clicked shut, and I stood there, stunned, watching my cousin literally run to her car. Did she just ambush me with her kids? I sighed, rubbing my temples. "All right, guys, looks like you're hanging out with me today." And again, she didn't come back for 8 hours. By the time she returned, I was exhausted, my patience shattered. She strolled in like nothing was wrong, scrolling through her phone. "Thanks again. You're seriously a lifesaver." I crossed my arms. "Jessica." She glanced up, still distracted. "You need to ask before dropping them off," I said, forcing my voice to stay even. "I had plans today." Jessica rolled her eyes, slipping her phone into her purse. "Oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal. You weren't doing anything important, right?" I clenched my jaw. "That's not the point. You can't just assume I'm always available." She sighed dramatically. Fine, fine. I'll ask next time." I didn't believe her. And I was right. Because the next time, she didn't even knock. A few days later, I was in a Zoom meeting for work when I heard my front door open. My stomach dropped. I knew I had locked it. I yanked off my headset and rushed to the door, only to find Jessica standing in my entryway, her kids already running into my living room. "Jessica!" I snapped. "What the hell are you doing?" She gave me an innocent look. "Oh, relax. I knew you'd be home. That's not the point." I gestured toward the door. "You can't just walk in." She waved me off, unfazed. "I'll be back later." Before I could argue, she was already halfway out the door. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned to Daniel and Ava, who were already making themselves comfortable on my couch. I took a deep breath. "All right, guys, let's figure out what to do today." Because again, I had no choice. Jessica's drop-offs became more frequent. At first, it was once a week. Then it became twice. Then randomly, whenever she felt like it, she stopped even pretending to ask. If I didn't answer the door, she'd text, "Hey, your place. Open up." If I didn't respond, she'd just leave the kids anyway. One morning, I woke up to my doorbell ringing at 7 a.m. Still half asleep, I stumbled to the door, peering through the peephole. Jessica stood outside, looking impatient, her kids bundled up in their jackets. I cracked the door open an inch. Jessica, what the hell? It's 7 in the morning. She sighed. I have an appointment. You knew that. I blinked. No, I didn't. Ugh, she groaned, rubbing her temples. I told you yesterday. She hadn't. But at this point, it didn't even matter. Because no matter how many times I tried to set boundaries, she ignored them. And the final straw? The day I went grocery shopping and came home to find her kids sitting on my porch alone. She had just dropped them off without even checking if I was home. My stomach twisted. What if I had decided to stay out longer? What if something had happened to them? I called her, furious. She answered on the second ring. What now? Jessica, I hissed. You left your kids outside my house alone. She scoffed. Oh, relax. They're fine. I knew you'd be back soon. I gripped my phone so hard my fingers ached. You cannot do this. Oh my God, she whined. You're being so dramatic. They're safe. What's the big deal? I hung up on her. Something had to change. Because this wasn't just inconsiderate anymore. This was dangerous. And I was done. I tried to be understanding. At first, I told myself Jessica was just overwhelmed. 2 kids under 5 was a lot to handle. And she was a single mom with a full-time job. Maybe she just needed a break. Maybe she was too embarrassed to ask for help properly. But then, the drop-offs became routine. It started subtly. A text here, a call there. Hey, running late. Can you watch the kids for an hour? Sorry, emergency. Can I drop them off real quick? I promise it won't be long. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. At first, I responded. I tried to set limits. But Jessica had a way of twisting things, making it seem like I was the bad guy if I said no. Well, okay. I guess I just won't get any help then. Must be nice to have so much free time that you can choose to be selfish. So I gave in, over and over again. But then she stopped asking. One morning, I woke up to my doorbell ringing. It was 7 a.m., and I groggily checked my phone. No texts. No calls. Confused. I dragged myself to the door, peering through the peephole. Jessica stood outside, looking impatient, her kids already half asleep in their jackets. I cracked the door open, still in my pajamas. Jessica, what the hell? It's 7 in the morning. She sighed dramatically. I have an appointment. You knew that. I blinked. No, I didn't. She waved a hand dismissively. Whatever. I told you yesterday. She hadn't. Before I could argue, she nudged Ava inside, gave Daniel a little push, and turned to leave. Jessica, I snapped, stepping forward. You can't just leave them here without asking. She shot me a look over her shoulder. It's just for a few hours. And then she drove off. I stood there, still in my slippers, watching her taillights disappear down the street. This wasn't just someone needing help. This was entitlement. And it only got worse. Sometimes she wouldn't even ring the doorbell. She'd just drop them off and drive away, expecting me to handle it. The worst part? She always acted like she was doing me a favor. They love spending time with you. You're so good with kids. You'll be an amazing parent someday. I wish I had someone like you when I was younger. It was always the same manipulative nonsense, dressed up to sound like a compliment. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. Then came the moment I knew I had to put a stop to this. I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting for work, one of those high-stakes calls where I actually had to focus, when I heard something strange. The sound of a door opening. My door. For a second, I froze, my brain struggling to process what was happening. Then, I heard tiny footsteps. I ripped my headset off, my heart pounding, and rushed to the front door. And there she was, Jessica, standing in my damn hallway, smiling like she had every right to be there. Her kids were already inside, Daniel climbing onto my couch, Ava heading straight for my kitchen. I stared at her, stunned. Jessica, what the hell are you doing? She had the nerve to look surprised. Oh, relax. I knew you were home. That's not the point. I snapped, barely holding back my anger. You can't just let yourself in. She rolled her eyes like I was the one being unreasonable. God, you're so dramatic. You weren't even doing anything important. I was at work, but before I could get another word out, she was already halfway out the door. I'll be back later, she called over her shoulder. And then she was gone. I stood there, absolutely fuming, as her kids made themselves at home. Daniel already flipping through the channels on my TV, Ava digging through my fridge. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. This is it, I thought. This is the last time. That night, after she finally came back 4 hours later, I confronted her. She walked in like nothing was wrong, smiling as she grabbed her kids' coats. Thanks again, she chirped. You're such a lifesaver. I folded my arms. Jessica, we need to talk. Her smile faltered for a split second before she plastered it back on. Okay. I can't keep doing this, I said, keeping my voice firm. You can't just leave them here without asking. And you definitely can't walk into my house like it's yours. She scoffed. Wow, someone's in a mood. I clenched my jaw. I'm serious. You need to stop. Jessica let out a short laugh, shaking her head. Oh, come on. It's not like I leave them for days. That's not the point, I said through gritted teeth. I have a job, a life. You don't respect my time at all. Her expression twisted, shifting from fake innocence to irritation. Jesus, I thought you actually liked spending time with them. But I guess you're just selfish like everyone else. I exhaled slowly, trying to control my temper. Liking them doesn't mean I have to be your on-call babysitter. Jessica scooped Ava in her arms, her jaw tight. You know what? Forget it. I won't bother you anymore. And just like that, she stormed out. I thought that was the end of it. I thought maybe she had finally taken me seriously. I was wrong, because the very next day, she texted me at 6 a.m. Hey, I need to drop them off. Be there in 5. No way. I ignored it. She texted again. Hello? Open the door when I get there. I ignored that too. Then came the guilt trip. Are you really just going to ignore me? Wow, you're unbelievable. And that's when I knew. I wasn't just dealing with an inconsiderate cousin. I was dealing with someone who refused to hear no. And it was time to take control. For good. I had spent weeks trying to be patient, trying to be understanding. But Jessica had made it clear. She didn't see me as a person with my own life. She saw me as a free babysitter, someone who would always be there, no matter how inconsiderate or manipulative she was. That changed the night I finally stood up to her. Jessica had dropped the kids off that morning, again without asking, and came back 2 hours late after I had already told her I had plans. She waltzed in like nothing was wrong, smiling as she grabbed Ava's coat. Thanks again, you're the best. I didn't even let her get to the door before I spoke. Jessica, we need to talk. She barely glanced up from her phone. Oh God, what now? I took a deep breath. Stay calm. You cannot keep doing this, I said. You have to ask first. I have my own life, my own schedule, and I can't just drop everything whenever you feel like leaving them here. She rolled her eyes. It's not a big deal. Yes, it is. My voice was firm. You're treating me like a built-in babysitter, and it's not fair. From now on, you have to ask. No more surprise drop-offs. If you don't ask, I will not watch them. Jessica let out a dramatic sigh, finally looking at me. And then, she did something that infuriated me. She smiled. Not an apologetic smile. Not an embarrassed one. A smug, amused little smile. Fine, she said. I get it. I'll ask next time. I stared at her, trying to read between the lines. But before I could say anything else, she grabbed Daniel's hand and walked out the door. It was too easy. She had agreed way too fast, and I should have known she was lying. 3 days later, my doorbell rang. I groggily rolled over, checking my phone. 7 in the morning. I frowned. Who the hell? I dragged myself to the front door, peeking through the peephole. Jessica, standing outside, arms crossed, looking annoyed. Her kids stood beside her, bundled up in jackets, shivering from the cold. I exhaled slowly, gripping the doorknob tighter. I opened the door just an inch. Jessica, what are you doing? She huffed. I have an appointment. I told you yesterday. I blinked. No, you didn't. Jessica let out an exaggerated sigh. Yes, I did. She spoke slowly, like she was explaining something to a child. I'll mention it when I pick them up. Maybe you just weren't listening. My jaw clenched. She was lying to my face. Jessica, I told you. She threw up her hands. Oh my God. It's just for a few hours. Why are you making this a big deal? I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to slam the door. Because you didn't ask. Because you don't respect my time. Because I'm not responsible for your kids. Jessica narrowed her eyes. So, what? You're just going to let me miss my appointment. There it was. The manipulation. The expectation that I would cave, that I would feel guilty, that I would give in. Not this time. Your kids are your responsibility. Not mine. Jessica scoffed, shaking her head. Wow. You seriously don't care, do you? I met her glare with a cold, steady stare. Jessica, I said, my voice sharp, go home. She gasped like I had just slapped her. Her entire expression twisted, her face turning red. Are you kidding me? You love spending time with them. I'm literally giving you a chance to bond with family. And this is how you act. I let out a humorless laugh. No, you're dubbing your kids on me and pretending it's a favor. Her hands curled into fists. Fine. You don't want to help me? I'll remember that. And with that, she grabbed Daniel's hand and stormed off, dragging Ava behind her. I slammed the door, my whole body shaking with frustration. She wasn't going to stop. She didn't care about my boundaries. She only cared about what was convenient for her. And it was time to do something about it. For good. I thought I had made myself clear. After our last fight, I was sure Jessica would finally get it. I had laid down the rules. No more dropping her kids off without asking. No more assuming I was available whenever she needed me. I even ignored a few of her texts afterward, just to reinforce the point. But Jessica? Jessica didn't care. She was the kind of person who heard no and treated it like a temporary setback instead of a firm boundary. And I learned that the hard way. It was a Wednesday afternoon when it happened. I had taken the day off work to run errands, groceries, dry cleaning, just a few things I needed to catch up on. My phone had been on silent while I was in the store, so I hadn't checked it in over an hour. I was halfway up my driveway when I noticed something strange. Two small figures sitting on my porch. My stomach dropped. Daniel and Ava, just sitting there alone. No Jessica. No text from her. No warning. Ava was curled up against the door, sucking her thumb, while Daniel was kicking his feet idly, picking at the hem of his jacket. I froze. My hands started shaking as I rushed toward them. Hey, what are you guys doing out here? Daniel looked up at me, blinking sleepily. Mommy said to wait. Ava just whimpered. I bent down, heart racing. Wait for what? How long have you been here? Daniel shrugged. A long time. I looked around, panic creeping in. My house was on a quiet street, but anyone could have walked by. Anything could have happened. They were alone. Alone. I had never felt rage like I did in that moment. I yanked my phone out of my pocket and dialed Jessica. She answered after 3 rings. What? She said, sounding bored. Jessica, I said, my voice dangerously low. Where the hell are you? A pause. Then casually, I just ran to do some things. Why? I nearly lost it. Because your children are sitting on my porch alone. Silence. Then, she laughed. Oh my God, relax. They're fine. I knew you'd be back soon. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. Are you serious right now? You just left them? Without even checking if I was home? Jessica sighed like I was the problem. Well, yeah, she said. You're always home. Asterisk. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to control the absolute fury boiling inside me. Jessica, what if I hadn't come back for hours? What if something had happened to them? Oh, stop being so dramatic. My entire body went cold. Dramatic. She thought I was being dramatic. There were no words for the level of hatred I felt at that moment. I took a deep breath, then another, trying to calm myself before I said something I'd regret. And then, I hung up on her. Because I was done. Something had to change. Because if I didn't, she was going to keep pushing until something actually went wrong. And I wasn't about to let that happen. Jessica thought she could get away with anything. She had left her kids on my porch alone without checking if I was home. And when I called her out on it, she laughed, said I was being dramatic, brushed off my anger like it was some kind of joke. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying it over and over in my head, the image of Daniel and Ava sitting outside in the cold, completely unsupervised. What if it had rained? What if a stranger had walked by? What if something happened? Jessica didn't care. She knew I'd be back eventually, and that was all that mattered to her. And the worst part? She was going to do it again. I could feel it, so I needed a way to stop her. For good. That's when I came up with a plan. The next morning, I ordered a Ring doorbell. If Jessica wanted to treat my house like her personal daycare, I was going to catch her in the act. I was done with the arguments. Done with the gaslighting. Done with her making me feel like I was the problem when she was the one dumping her kids on me like I was some unpaid nanny. The doorbell arrived the next evening, and I wasted no time setting it up. I positioned it perfectly, just the right angle to capture every move anyone made on my porch. The second someone stepped foot near my front door, I'd get a notification on my phone with a live feed of what was happening. Jessica had no idea what was coming, and I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, she tried it again. I was in the middle of cooking dinner when my phone buzzed. Motion detected. Front door. My stomach tightened. I knew exactly who it was before I even checked. I wiped my hands on a towel and pulled up the live feed. And there she was, Jessica, standing at my doorstep, kids in tow, already looking annoyed. I watched as she knocked. Waited a second. Knocked again. I wasn't going to answer. Instead, I stood there watching every single thing she did from my phone. Jessica rang the doorbell. Rang it again. Then she stepped back and peeked through my windows. I clenched my jaw. She was checking for signs that I was home, looking to see if my car was in the driveway, trying to figure out why I wasn't answering. She wasn't here to ask if I could watch her kids. She was here to drop them off whether I liked it or not. And this time, I was ready for her. After about a minute of silence, Jessica pulled out her phone. A second later, my phone buzzed. Jessica, why aren't you answering? I smirked. I didn't respond. She rang the doorbell again. Knocked harder. Waited. Then, another text. Jessica, I know you're home. I almost laughed out loud. The entitlement. The audacity. She truly thought that because I was home, I had to answer. That I had to drop everything and take her kids, just because it was convenient for her. Jessica knocked again, louder this time, angry now. She pulled out her phone, probably waiting for me to text back, then turned toward Daniel and Ava. And that's when my stomach dropped. I saw it in her body language. She was about to leave them. She actually thought about it. For a split second, I panicked. I gripped my phone, my heart racing, wondering if I should open the door, if I should yell. But then Daniel spoke. Mommy, where's Annie? Jessica let out an exaggerated sigh. She's being mean today. I nearly threw my phone across the room. Mean? Mean? I was done. Jessica stood there for another minute, waiting, but when she saw I wasn't answering, when she realized I was actually ignoring her, she finally grabbed her kid's hands and stormed off. I watched the whole thing from my phone, my breathing heavy, and then I saved the footage, because now I had proof, and she had no idea. Jessica hated being ignored. She thrived on control, on knowing that no matter how manipulative or inconsiderate she was, people would give in just to avoid dealing with her. But this time, I wasn't playing her game. I stood in my kitchen, watching the live feed on my phone, arms crossed as Jessica stomped her foot on my porch like a toddler. Daniel and Ava looked up at her, confused, as she pulled out her phone. A second later, mine buzzed. Jessica, are you serious right now? I smirked. Buzz. Jessica, I know you're home. I didn't answer. Jessica huffed loudly, glancing at my front door before furiously typing on her phone. Buzz. Jessica, just take them for an hour. Buzz. Jessica, it's not that hard. I just need a break. My fingers tightened around my phone. A break? Jessica had 2 kids. That was her choice. But somehow, she acted like it was everyone else's job to make her life easier. Not just once in a while. All the time. And now that I had finally cut her off, she was panicking. When I didn't reply, she switched tactics. The guilt trip. Buzz. Jessica, wow. I do everything for them. You're so selfish. I almost laughed. Selfish? Me? Jessica had been dumping her kids on me for weeks, invading my home, ignoring my boundaries, expecting me to just accept it. And because I refused one time, I was the bad guy. My phone buzzed again. Jessica, they love spending time with you. You're punishing them, not me. My jaw clenched. That was low. Dragging her own kids into this, making them pawns in some twisted argument, just to make me feel bad. I stayed silent, and it drove her insane. The next few minutes were hilarious. I watched as Jessica's frustration escalated in real time. She started pacing, phone in hand, waiting for me to break. She knocked on my door again, this time harder. Nothing. She rang the doorbell. Still nothing. Daniel tugged at her sleeve. Mommy, is Annie mad? Jessica's face twisted, and she snapped at him. No, she's just being ridiculous. I inhaled sharply, my grip tightening on my phone. She had no idea I could hear everything. No idea I was watching the entire thing. And when I still didn't answer, Jessica did what she always did when she didn't get her way. She called our family. First, it was a group chat message. Jessica, guess who just abandoned her niece and nephew on the porch? Face with symbols on mouth. I rolled my eyes. Seconds later, my phone exploded with notifications. Aunt Linda. What? What's going on? Mom. Wait, what do you mean? Jessica. OP won't even open the door. They've been standing out here forever. Uncle Dave. That doesn't sound right. Rachel, my other cousin. Wait, are you serious? I took a deep breath. I knew exactly what Jessica was doing. She was twisting the story, making it sound like I had abandoned them, like I was some cruel monster refusing to care for my own family. I wasn't about to let that happen. I opened the chat and typed one sentence. Me. Check the ring footage. Silence. For a full minute, no one said anything. Then, Rachel, wait. You have a Ring doorbell. Me, yup. Me. And I have footage of Jessica trying to leave her kids with me without permission again. Another long pause. I could almost feel the tension through the phone. And then, the best message of the night. Uncle Dave, so? Jessica, you want to explain that? Jessica immediately left the group chat. I burst out laughing. My phone buzzed again, a private message this time. Jessica, WTF is wrong with you? Why would you say that? I stared at the screen, shaking my head. I wasn't going to play her games. I let her sit in her own mess for a while before finally replying. Me, you did this to yourself. And then? I put my phone on silent and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I actually slept peacefully. Jessica couldn't stand losing control. For weeks, she had treated me like an unpaid babysitter, dumping her kids on my doorstep without permission, ignoring my boundaries, and acting like I owed her free childcare. But now, with the Ring footage proving she had been lying, she couldn't manipulate the situation like she usually did. So she did the only thing she knew how to do. She ran straight to our family, playing the victim. I barely had time to process her meltdown before my phone started buzzing. One message after another came flooding into the family group chat, all from Jessica. I can't believe OP just abandoned my kids outside. What kind of person does that? I'm literally a single mom doing my best, and she just left them there like they were nothing. I'm heartbroken. I stared at the screen, my jaw tightening. Abandon them? She was twisting reality so hard it was almost impressive. I didn't even have time to respond before the rest of the family jumped in. Wait, what happened? OP, is this true? Jessica, are you okay? Then came my uncle's response, short and to the point. That doesn't sound right. I almost laughed. At least someone wasn't immediately falling for her nonsense. But others weren't as skeptical. My aunt called me directly, her voice sharp with accusation. Why on earth would you refuse to help Jessica? She's struggling, and you just left the kids out in the cold. I took a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Did Jessica tell you the whole story? She told me enough. My aunt snapped. She said she was desperate, and you just ignored them. You didn't even open the door. That's funny, I said, pulling up my phone, because I have video proof that she never asked me to watch them. She just showed up and expected me to take them like always. And when I didn't answer, she threw a fit. My aunt hesitated. Video proof? I smiled coldly. Yeah, I have a Ring doorbell now. So I caught the whole thing on camera. Her silence was all I needed to hear. I hung up before she could say anything else and went straight to the group chat. Without responding to Jessica's lies, I simply attached a screenshot of the footage. Jessica standing on my porch. Jessica peeking through my windows. Jessica texting me, demanding that I open the door. Then I added one sentence. This is what actually happened. Silence. The chat, which had been flooded with concern for Jessica, suddenly stopped moving. Nobody said anything for a full minute. Then, finally one response. Jessica, is this true? A few more followed. So she never asked OP beforehand? Wait, she just expected OP to take them. Why did she say they were abandoned? Jessica left the group chat without another word. I let out a slow breath, feeling the tension leave my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I had shut her down completely. But that didn't mean she was done trying to manipulate the situation. Because while the family was starting to see through her lies, Jessica wasn't the type to back down easily. And her next move would make things even worse. That night, after Jessica's dramatic exit from the group chat, my mother called me. I debated ignoring it, but she would just keep trying, so I picked up. Are you okay? She asked. I frowned. Yeah. Why wouldn't I be? She sighed. I don't know. This whole situation with Jessica is a mess. I just wanted to hear your side of it directly. I could already tell she had seen the footage. That was the only reason she wasn't immediately taking Jessica's side. You saw what happened, I said. She didn't ask me to watch them. She just assumed I would. Again, my mother was quiet for a moment. I just don't understand why she would do this. Why wouldn't she ask first? I let out a dry laugh. Because she doesn't think she has to ask. She thinks I'm supposed to say yes no matter what. And now that I finally said no, she's freaking out. Another long pause. Then finally my mother sighed. You're right. I almost dropped my phone. Wait, I said, stunned. Did you just agree with me? Don't get used to it, she muttered. But yeah, I can't defend that. The video speaks for itself. Jessica really thought she could get away with this, huh? She always does, I said, shaking my head. My mother sighed again. Well, you don't have to worry about Aunt Linda. I talked to her. She knows Jessica twisted the story. That was a relief. Aunt Linda had been the loudest voice demanding to know why I had abandoned my niece and nephew. Now that she knew the truth, Jessica's support was crumbling fast. Good, I said, because I'm done dealing with this. Do you think Jessica will try again? My mother asked. I didn't even have to think about it. Definitely. Jessica wasn't the type to admit she was wrong. If she couldn't turn the family against me, she would find another way to make my life miserable. I just didn't know how far she was willing to go. but I was about to find out. Jessica didn't reply. After she stormed out of the family group chat, the silence that followed lasted only a few minutes. Then, as expected, the chat exploded with reactions. So people immediately turned on her. Wait, she just left them without checking first. She really expected OP to just deal with it? What if something had happened to them? Others, though, still tried to defend her. She's a single mom. Cut her some slack. Maybe she was desperate. We don't know what she's going through. And then there was the comment that shut everyone up. She left them alone? That's what finally made people realize just how bad this was. Jessica wasn't just being inconsiderate. She was being reckless, negligent. And for the first time, people were actually saying it out loud. I watched the messages roll in, part of me expecting Jessica to jump back in and fight back. But she didn't. She had nothing to say. She had been caught lying with actual video evidence, and no matter how much she wanted to spin the story, she couldn't. So instead, she vanished. The next morning, my phone buzzed. I had almost forgotten about her at that point, assuming she had finally accepted defeat. But no, Jessica was not the type to let things go. She had just been waiting for a way to regain control. And her next move was peak Jessica. I stared at my phone screen, reading the massive wall of text she had sent me. It was long, too long. I scrolled and scrolled, and the rant just kept going. It was classic Jessica. Overdramatic, manipulative, and self-victimizing. Wow, I cannot believe you did that to me. I thought we were family. Do you even realize how much you embarrass me? Everyone is treating me like I'm a bad mom now because of you. Do you even care what you did to me? I was just trying my best. I needed help. But instead of being a decent person, you decided to humiliate me in front of everyone. Congratulations. You ruined our relationship. I hope you're happy. I will never forget this. I sighed, shaking my head. This wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. Jessica wasn't sorry for what she did. She was just sorry she got caught. She wasn't acknowledging how reckless she had been. She wasn't admitting that she had ruined things by pushing me too far. No, in her mind, I was the one who had ruined everything. Because I had dared to say no. Because I had exposed her behavior instead of letting her get away with it. I read the whole thing twice, letting every manipulative sentence sink in. And then, I replied with only 4 words. You did this to yourself. I hit send and put my phone down. No more justifying myself. No more arguments. Jessica had spent weeks ignoring my boundaries, acting like I was obligated to take care of her kids. And now that I had finally put a stop to it, she was losing her mind. I wasn't going to engage. I wasn't going to let her drag me back in. For the first time in weeks, I had taken my life back. And I wasn't about to let her manipulate me into feeling bad for it. Later that day, my cousin Rachel called me. Okay, she said the second I picked up. I need details. I sighed, already knowing where this was going. I sent you the screenshot. You saw what happened. I know, but she hesitated. Jessica is losing it. She's messaging literally everyone, trying to make people feel bad for her. She's saying you ruined her life. I let out a dry laugh. Sounds about right. You're not even a little worried? Rachel asked. Not even a little, I said. She did this to herself? Rachel exhaled. Yeah, I get that she's struggling, but she's seriously crossed the line. And honestly, I think people are finally seeing through her nonsense. Good, I said, because I'm done being her safety net. Rachel was quiet for a moment, then sighed. Well, whatever happens, I've got your back. Thanks, I said. And I'm in it, because for the first time, I wasn't fighting this battle alone. Jessica's manipulation tactics weren't working anymore. And without her usual ability to control the narrative, she was about to crash and burn. Jessica wasn't done. After her meltdown in the family group chat and my brutal forward response, you did this to yourself, she finally stopped texting me. No more guilt trips. No more fake apologies. No more dramatic rants. She just vanished. At first, I thought she might have given up. But Jessica wasn't the type to accept consequences. If she couldn't use me as her personal babysitter anymore, she would just find someone else. And that's exactly what she tried to do. Her first target? Rachel. Rachel had been one of the first people to call Jessica out in the group chat after seeing the ring footage. That made her enemy number 1. But Jessica was desperate. So, a few days after going completely silent on me, Jessica showed up at Rachel's house unannounced. Rachel told me the whole story later. Apparently, Jessica had tried to act casual, pretending like nothing had happened between us. She had knocked on Rachel's door, smiling, with Daniel and Avis standing beside her. Hey, Jessica had chirped. Oh my gosh, it's been forever. How have you been? Rachel, not buying it for a second, raised an eyebrow. Jessica, what do you want? Jessica laughed, waving her hand. What? Can't I just visit my favorite cousin? Rachel crossed her arms. Jessica, a beat of silence. Then, Jessica sighed dramatically. Okay, fine. I just have to run a quick errand. Could you watch them for like an hour? Please? Just an hour. Rachel stared at her, expression unreadable. Then she said, Did you ask OP first? Jessica's face twisted. Seriously? After everything, you're going to bring OP into this? Rachel didn't blink. I saw the footage, Jessica. We all did. You never asked her for help. You just tried to dump them on her and hoped she wouldn't say no. Jessica's jaw tightened. Oh my God, that was totally different, she snapped. I was just having a hard day, and she made it a huge deal. I thought you, of all people, would understand how hard it is to be a mom. Rachel was unmoved. You thought wrong. Jessica's face flushed red. Wow, unbelievable. And before Rachel could say anything else, Jessica grabbed her kid's hands, spun on her heel, and stormed off. Rachel watched her go, shaking her head. She texted me right after. You were right. She really thought she could just move on to the next person. Not happening. I smiled. One down. Her next target? Aunt Linda. Jessica probably assumed Aunt Linda would be an easy win. After all, she had been one of the first people in the group chat to take Jessica's side before seeing the evidence. But by the time Jessica came knocking, Aunt Linda had already seen the footage. And she wasn't interested in being played. I got the story through family gossip, but apparently, Jessica had tried the same fake casual approach she had used on Rachel. She showed up at Aunt Linda's house, kids in tow, trying to act sweet and charming. Aunt Linda, oh, I missed you. I just have to run to the store real quick. Could you watch the kids for a tiny bit? Aunt Linda had raised an eyebrow. Jessica, she had said, voice dry. Did you ask Opie first? Jessica had gone pale. Apparently, she had stammered for a second before snapping. Why does everyone keep asking me that? Aunt Linda had just folded her arms. Because nobody wants to be used. Jessica had gaped at her. Then, realizing she wasn't going to win, she had let out a frustrated growl, grabbed the kids, and left without another word. Strike two. In the next few days, Jessica tried every family member she could think of. A cousin, a distant aunt, a family friend, and every single person shut her down. Because the second Jessica left the family group chat, nobody trusted her anymore. The ring footage had ruined her reputation. She wasn't just a single mom in need of help anymore. She was the cousin who lied. The cousin who dumped her kids on people without asking. The cousin who tried to manipulate her way out of responsibility. And word had spread. For the first time in who knows how long, Jessica had no options left. She couldn't use me. She couldn't use Rachel. She couldn't use Aunt Linda. She couldn't use anyone. And that was her own fault. She had pushed too hard, assumed people would always let her get away with things. But now, she had to figure it out on her own. No more free babysitting. No more guilt-tripping people into helping her. No more treating family members like her personal daycare service. She was on her own, and I had never felt so free. Jessica had finally run out of options. For weeks, she had bounced from one family member to another, desperate to find someone else to manipulate. But after the ring footage exposed her, nobody was willing to fall for it anymore. She tried Rachel. She tried Aunt Linda. She even tried distant relatives who barely knew her. And every single person shut her down. Jessica had burned every bridge, which meant for the first time in a long time, she had to actually be responsible for her own kids. And she hated it. The first sign that things had changed came 2 weeks later. I was in the middle of a peaceful Saturday morning, something I hadn't had in months. No surprise knocks. No frantic last-minute texts. No unannounced kids being shoved into my house. I actually got to wake up whenever I wanted, drink my coffee without interruption, go through an entire day without worrying that Jessica would suddenly show up on my doorstep. It was glorious. Then my phone buzzed. For a split second, I wondered if Jessica had finally cracked and was about to beg me for help. But no, it was Rachel. I picked up, and before I could even say hello, she burst into laughter. Oh my God, she wheezed. Jessica is losing her mind. I smirked. Let me guess. She finally realized nobody's going to babysit for her anymore? Rachel snorted. Yup, and she is not handling it well. Apparently, Jessica had spent the past week complaining to anyone who would listen about how unfair it was that she had to actually pay for childcare now. Why should I have to spend so much money on babysitters when I have family? Nobody is helping me. It's like everyone turned against me for no reason. I'm their mother. I deserve a break. Rachel could barely get the words out without laughing. She's acting like she's the only person in the world who has kids, she said. Like it's some kind of personal betrayal that she actually has to, I don't know, take care of them herself. I grinned. Good. She needs to learn that nobody owes her free childcare. Rachel sighed dramatically. I almost feel bad for her. I raised an eyebrow. Almost. Rachel snickered. Almost. But then I remembered that she literally tried to dump her kids on you without asking. Exactly, I said. She did this to herself. And for the first time, I actually meant it. Because for so long, I had felt guilty. Jessica had manipulated me into believing I was selfish for not watching her kids. That I was a bad person for wanting control over my own time. But now, I didn't feel guilty at all. Because I wasn't the problem. She was. And everyone knew it. Over the next few weeks, I noticed something strange. Jessica stayed quiet. No texts. No sudden appearances. No attempts to guilt-trip me through our family. She had finally realized that I was done playing her game. And she had no choice but to deal with it. I heard through the family grapevine that she had been forced to start hiring babysitters. And she hated every second of it. She complained about how expensive they were. How unreliable they were. How unfair it was that she had to actually pay for a service she had been expecting for free. But the best part? She never tried to contact me again. One evening, I was sitting on my couch, enjoying a quiet night in, when I caught a glimpse of my front door. The Ring doorbell was still there, blinking softly in the dim light. It had started as a way to catch Jessica in the act. But now, it was a reminder that I had finally taken control of my own life. No more surprise babysitting shifts. No more panicked work meetings with kids screaming in the background. No more unwanted interruptions. I was free, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that from me again. I leaned back, taking a slow sip of my drink. I didn't need the Ring doorbell anymore. Jessica was gone. She wasn't my problem anymore. But still, I kept it, just in case.